Welcome to another video for WinBidPro version 15 by GDS Estimating. This video here is going to cover the 15.11 update, and there's a few significant changes that I wanted to mention in this one. The first is the vendors window. This window's been recreated, redesigned with a new grid and everything. And one important feature that's new is this single text kind of search box. So I can type anything in here that I want, and it's going to search the entire list. So it's not really based on the per column filtering. Though you can still do that, this is probably the go-to way to search for things, since it's one box that can search for everything. And I can clear it by clicking X, or I can also hit clear filter, and it'll clear kind of everything. So that's a big thing. And then so this video is going to cover kind of just the basics of what's new, and then I'll have another video that will cover more specifics. So the next thing would be the hardware or other hardware list. Now, other hardware is something that's been there for a while, but it was kind of hidden in the final parts report. So now we put it on the main menu tree, and then it also has the new updated grid and window where it has the single search box. And if you don't know about this, it's basically a way to add any type of hardware at the final parts report to any quote that you're doing. So it works a lot like Glass, where it's one hardware list for the entire program, and you can add anything from that list to any job in any catalog. So it comes with excess hardware parts, pre-populated, a lot of them actually, and you can change, edit, delete, do anything you want and add your own to that list. But know that you can actually pick a finish color, you can set the pricing, you can do all that stuff, and then it gets added to the final parts. So that's something that's easy to get to now. So that brings us to the parts list. That has been updated with the same thing, the single search box, the new grid, and it does some other things actually. So this final parts, we're looking at the Coral architectural catalog, and you'll notice that there's no pricing for the mill column. And you also notice that there's not a bunch of no finish columns for pricing. And I'm going to scoot this over. So the no finish columns would normally have been there in the old version. So now we're kind of eliminating what you don't need to see. So the reason there's no mill pricing here and it's just blank is because these door frames and doors aren't available in mill. So we're making it a little easier to read your parts list now, where it's not showing you a bunch of zeros and a bunch of columns that don't need to be shown. So I'll get more into that in the next video, but that's an important point to make. So then what do we have? Oh, one more thing with the vendors list. When you select a vendor, once you load this new update, and it hasn't been opened yet, let's say it's the first time it's being opened, there's actually a message that's going to pop up that says it needs to update the catalog. So that pricing information that I just showed you, where it's kind of knowing what columns to eliminate and which ones to show, that's part of this update process. So the software will update the catalog once, and then from that point on, it'll work fine in the version in the 15.11 and show you the correct stuff. And we made it so that this should still work fine in older versions. If there's someone in your company that is still using an older version of the software and you're using the newer one, it shouldn't be any trouble. So that was worth pointing out. Now the next thing is the final parts. So the final parts report now has a finish column that you see here, and that wasn't there before. And there's also some other things that happen behind the scenes, like you can add finish codes now to your different finish names. So you have your clear, bronze, black, and all that. A lot of manufacturers have codes. For example, YKK has some specific codes for their finishes, and we've made an export that will add those codes to the part numbers so that when you send a report to someone like YKK, it will show the part number the way they're used to seeing it on their system, which shows the finish code, maybe a stock length, things like that. So it's adding the necessary suffixes, we call them, to the parts that you're sending them. And even on the printout, it'll show you that information. So that's all included in this like new update. So keep that in mind. Everything else is pretty much the same, but now this one doesn't have that single search field because it's a little older tool that we use to create this grid, but it still has the individual filtering and all that. But I guess the newer tools always offer new features, so that's just the way it goes. But those other new forms, the other hardware, the vendors window, and the parts list, those all have the newer thing that has the single search tool. And yeah, tune in and watch that second video so you can follow along with some more details about the finishes and all those things. Thanks a lot.